It's always a question of when they go live. Now.
Like now, here we are.
We're here.
Welcome, friends. We are here with the sad operator, but you can tell from the smile that he's not so sad anymore. But the Twitter accounts go on, and we're here to talk about that. I'm Joshua Timberman. I'm joined by Pete and Tyler.
Hello to all one of you, maybe two soon. The joys of streaming is you have to wait for your audience to come find you.
Yeah. To log into their Twitch account and
get those anonymous views in.
Right? Yep.
And then, of course, what's also fun is when you're also doing the tweeting with the what's it called? The streaming, the tweeting and the streaming. You have to do it like all at the same time. It's really.
But you don't want to stream the tweets. You want to. I don't know.
Why are we so bad at naming things?
I don't know. I hear that that's one of the hardest things in computers is naming things.
Stream is so overloaded.
A naming system for domains. And that's why it's the root of all the problems, right?
That doesn't work out
well, I would love to start off with clapping, I suppose, but quietly to not mess up our audio here. Yeah. On the glorious return of, I guess, both Sad Server and Sad Operator on Twitter. I don't know. Should we start at the end or should we start at the beginning? Like where?
I think we already started at the end.
The end. The end. It's back. Welcome.
Yes, indeed.
But you created this back in 2010, right?
Sad Server, yeah. Sad Server is 2010.
What was, I guess, the real, other than being, a grizzled sysadmin like we all are? What was there any singular thing that you were like, I need to put this out to the internet?
The original motivation. So in ye olden days, in the early days of Twitter, dirtbags like me would just register and squat on Twitter names. And so I had a bunch of them. And I remember registering Sad Server, and I was originally going to use it just as almost like monitoring, because people were plugging everything into Twitter. So I thought, man, it would be cool if I could just set up some monitoring scripts on some of these little physical machines, like machines that were with arm's length in an office, to just post stuff when they were unhappy. And usually they weren't happy. But to actually post system information. Because I thought that would be cool, because all sorts of information was going into Twitter in 2010. It's before we realized that it was a good vehicle for, fascism and hate.
Misinformation, right, exactly.
Yeah. The early days. This is around the era, I remember the first World Cup with Twitter. People were like, oh my God, Twitter's amazing. And then the Arab Spring happened, and they're like, man, Twitter's going to change the world. And we were right, but also, damn. Wrong way. But yeah, so I started it with that, and then it sort of sat idle for a year or so. And then I found myself becoming more and more annoyed, I would say. The deeper I got into systems administration, this is when shortly after, I remember Jez Humble gave this really great continuous delivery speech at a VelocityConf one year. This is when DevOps days were really starting to come into their own. And PuppetConf and ChefConf, and everybody is the new era of systems administration is upon us. And I came into this from a developer standpoint, and I remember coming into systems administration and infrastructure and being like, this is what y'all have been doing over here.
We're not proud. We're not proud of it.
You have, it's like when you just love sausages, you love hot dogs, and then you watch that horrific video of it.
Oh my God. Right? Yeah.
Those chicken nuggets, they don't.
Just the big grinder wheel just creating infrastructure. And I came in with a very irreverent viewpoint Because when I started in the industry, the people that were in infrastructure were typically like literally bearded men who like knew all of the things, and they like could account for all of the machines by name. And there's like, I think Croy posted something recently about like the most like stupid naming scheme for, you know, machines from back in the day. And like,
oh my gosh,
one of the first jobs that I was working at, like this was before Lord of the Rings movies, like some super nerd admin that I worked with at a university had named all of the machines these really obscure Tolkien characters. And that was like when I was starting to get into infrastructure, I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I was thinking like future-y, like everything's automated and everything's like amazing. And then like you pull back the covers and there's like a bunch of people like, I think it's going okay. I hope nothing breaks. I want to go on vacation. And so, yeah, I came in with a very like, y'all, this is freaking messed up. I hope you don't think that this is good, because it's not.
it so wasn't.
Especially at that point, like at that point, people were like, whoa, y'all, we can use like scripts to automate the things. And people in conferences were like, amazing, we could use software. Holy shit.
I
and so, yeah, that
of sysadmin books over there in the corner. And there's things that talk about using scripts to automate things, but nobody like took most of that stuff seriously, like until, you know, we had frameworks for it, and CF Engine and all these other things that came along.
And CF Engine came out a long time ago, and it still took people forever to get on board with it.
It was and it was so far. I mean, it was too early, I guess, right? Like people just, I don't know, they had to like maybe live through the pain.
Yeah, this isn't like, you know, when you move out on your own and you have to figure out, you know, to pay your credit card on time, and you have to really learn that lesson and get that overdraft fee, and you know, all like this is not the lesson you need to learn. You have businesses to run.
It was also like, I think that era was also like the DevOps days for me was when systems administration and infrastructure engineering became social. And so all of a sudden it felt like all of these other people were finding their voice. And I guess my voice was just this smarky jerk off in the corner who's like, this is kind of funny. It's bad. And like other people, like, I can't remember some of the names from those early DevOps days, were like really positive messages, like good stuff. So I guess my niche was a little.
Yeah, like we try to do that at Chef and be really positive, and, you know, not denigrating on other people and other tech, because it's all terrible. It's just all bad. Like we're all sad about it. Let's try and make the most of it and have some fun.
So what's super funny to me about this part of the industry, and it's an endless sort of source of inspiration for me, I guess, for Snark, is there is systems administrators, operators, DBAs, everybody in this sort of infrastructure domain. There's almost like a simultaneous hero and victim complex. Like everybody wants to ride in to save the day, but they also have this thing of like, I'm never appreciated ever. Like no one cares that I exist. I never get the budget that I want. I don't get the support that I want, but there's an incident. I'm here to help. And it's just this really funny cultural mentality where people seem to simultaneously like want attention, but don't like get upset if it, like, I don't know. It's just mind blowing. Some of the ego and cognitive dissonance in the infrastructure space because of that. I've worked with some really amazing firefighters, so to speak.
Yeah.
And around the DevOps days, that resurgence, they started to become a little bit more obsolete. And so people like me that like had some software chops started to come in and not exactly push them out of the industry, but like started to shift the organizations as opposed to, people who are just like really good at incidents, I guess. People who could plan ahead, I guess.
Well, it also kind of, I feel like, ties into a lot of the how everyone had to really level up your skills to maintain relevancy. Like, I mean, I was totally the sysadmin who knew how to rack and stack servers and turn them on and plug them in and do those things. And I could do just enough with
What an
Dash.
old-fashioned sentence that is.
Right? Isn't that
It's
crazy?
like saying, like, oh yeah, I looked up the Blockbuster in the phone book, and I'm going to go rent a movie. Like,
yeah,
really,
like, those are all words. I don't know what any of them are.
But it definitely like it hit. You hit a thread with these. With these tweets. I mean, they're so good ones, and they're also ones that like have incredible staying power. I saw this one before that. This was from like 2018 that you had posted this tweet, and it actually is even bigger, right? Kubernetes, conferences are just like DevRel Kubernetes conferences now.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, for a while it was infrastructure as code DevRel.
Oh yeah.
Around. Like, I mean, that was literally my job. Was like I never kept up with the cool job titles, but I was doing the Chef DevRel thing for years and years. I never put it into containers though. That was for other people who had containers.
The containerization thing is still is one of the funniest things we've done to ourselves in the infrastructure space, because it's that dichotomy between very conflicting. There's construction above me, so sorry if you can hear any of that. Very conflicting viewpoints. We're like, great, we're going to give people containers, and then they can have ownership and do whatever they want, and not involve me to like go update Python versions in production so that they can run their freaking Django app. Like, that's wonderful. And then we're like, here, developers, here's all of this power. And then we sort of wait for like 6 months, and we're like, no, not like that. No, please stop. Like, that's what happens. Like, that's literally what happens when you give people, like, you give a mouse a cookie, and 9 months later, you've got 4 GB size Docker containers or Docker images that you have to somehow figure out how to work on EKS. And like, tough shit. This is your bed. You made it.
Hey, at least you have an EKS now. You don't have to run your own Kubernetes with cops and all that nonsense.
I'm not sure if EKS is a step in.
Well, I mean,
as an EKS user,
I used it for a hot minute, and then I set up my own cluster with cops, but that was like 3 years ago.
EKS is one of my favorite managed services from AWS, to where you're like, great, it's managed. Finally, I've been so wanting a managed Kubernetes service because I'm tired about caring about Kubernetes. I just want to put shit in containers and forget about it. And then EKS is like, what do you want to do about this networking? We've got some nodes that need to be upgraded. And you're like, this is supposed to be managed.
Yeah, right? This is where I feel like this is where Fargate comes in. Of just like, but I want like an easier Fargate. Of just like, here's a container and just run. Like,
Fargate's pretty good.
Like, you run the rest. It's almost like we've been trying to rebuild Heroku for the last 10 years.
Yes, 100%.
100%. Yep.
Heroku nailed it, and then Salesforce bought them, and so like persona non grata.
I just imagine this like alternate universe where Salesforce didn't buy Heroku like right out of the gate. I feel like it was kind of early in the Heroku lifespan of it that like Heroku actually lived on. Maybe not under Salesforce control. Would they have been bigger or different? I mean, they're huge, right? They're still massively used, but like, would it be different? Would the ecosystem have changed? I don't know.
Yeah. So speaking of change, I wanted to circle back on the topic of, so you shut down SAD server and SAD operator some years ago, and you mentioned having some burnout, and I was curious if you were willing to talk about what you did to overcome the burnout. I care about you as a human, and I'm sad that you were burned out, but I don't want to focus on like why you burned out, but what kind of things did you do to overcome that? Like how did you get back to a happy place where you enjoy doing work and you were motivated to bring these Twitter accounts back?
The motivation is a different story, but like recovering, being burnt out on this, and I've burned out professionally a couple of times now. It's usually distance that's been the most important, whether from the domain or from the problem, or from even the organization. In this case, I guess I got wrapped up in the characters. Like, I was more angry than I should have been, because the more that you pay attention to Twitter, and I think it's a very natural thing for people to do, is to focus on the negative, because it's easier to spot that, especially in infrastructure. It's way easier to tell somebody, here's what's broken with this infrastructure, than here's what's working well with this infrastructure, because we only typically concern ourselves with what's broken. So around the time when I shut this down, I'd actually burnt out professionally like a year or two prior. And then I kept these going. I found that I was spending too much time caring about the industry at large, I guess. And so I actually pulled back from caring about the industry. Like, I wasn't listening to podcasts. I wasn't listening to or watching other people on Twitter necessarily, or getting into like, oh, here's the latest, to use Kubernetes. Here's the latest, 1.18 or 1.70 or whatever's been released. Here's what's in it. Here's what that's going to mean. I sort of stepped off that treadmill for a while and focused just on like the applications that we're building for customers. Like, what are we actually trying to solve? And stopped caring a little bit less about the technology. Because it's, as you both know, like, it's still been like turning in the background. Like, there's still all this shit that's going on back here. But I sort of stepped away from caring about that treadmill of updates and maintenance windows and things that were going on, and that helped a lot.
Did you ever find? I feel like I ran into the same situation where, in absolutely one of the times that I had burned out, where I was finding myself at night like, oh, let me go play around with this thing. Let me go play around with console. Let me play around with Terraform. And I would do that from like 8 to whatever late in night. Because I was like, oh, I want to learn this thing or whatever. And then basically you just end up like, oh, well, I can now use this thing for work. And it's just like, you just end up, you're just working all the time.
Wait, was that just work time that I accidentally did there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I just accidentally do another 7 hours of work?
Yeah. During your like off time. Were you finding yourself doing some of that?
I definitely did some of that, especially when I knew that there were like bigger projects that were coming up. It's like, what am I doing? I'm working while I'm not working. Even though it is valuable. Like, I've been in an open source community for a long time. Like, that hobby hacking is really valuable. I actually don't do that much of it anymore.
No, I used to do that with the chef cookbooks all the time.
Yeah.
And like, it was part of the reason why I burned out for a long time. And I was burned out and didn't even realize it for like 3 years.
Yeah, this is actually a great comment. I love this one. Professional detachment is an utterly critical skill. It totally is. Because, I think to your point, when you end up caring too much about things, like then everything becomes like emotional, which is just
what's super funny about it is if you detach a little bit. Like, one of the things that I did in the last 6 or 7 years, I moved from the East Bay. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was in San Francisco originally, moved to the East Bay, and then we bought a place up in Santa Rosa. For those that don't know the geography, Santa Rosa is like 50 miles north of San Francisco, which if you live in San Francisco, it might as well be in Oregon. Like, it doesn't, like, no one's coming to visit. But like, being in an environment where I like go to a restaurant and people aren't like refining their pitches or like talking about tech, to where people are doing like other things, was actually quite helpful, because that was around a time when I had burnt out at a previous organization, to where all of a sudden it wasn't like every day, all the time was tech. But then I just sort of like let myself fall back into that with free time and like that hobby hacking sort of thing. There was this one, y'all may remember a couple of years ago, there's the Tubbs fire and Nuns fire in Santa Rosa. Came through 2017, burned out a lot of stuff. I fell in with this volunteer group where we were helping get volunteers information, shelter information stuff up to date on and published on the internet for a while. And for like 2 weeks there, while these fires were going on, I had typically CAL FIRE in one ear and I would have news radio in the other. And I was basically bringing information into social media and elsewhere. And that was like a high octane version of what I had done to myself in the tech industry, compressed into 2 weeks, to where I was super, super emotionally in not a good spot after that. Like, it was very difficult to come back down to having regular conversations with people and do things, because I just like overloaded the stimuli. And that's some like detaching from that and stepping away from Twitter and from conferences and stuff really helped me. I don't know, realize like this is work. Like, tech is work. and there's other shit that's going on that's worth your time. So yeah, the detachment helped. I don't know. I think like finding, I had people tell me at the time I was also being too negative. And so I also had to like individually work on not seeing the negative part first.
You mean like in a personal setting, or like
any setting?
Like that sad server was getting very negative because like
no any possible setting. Like I remember one person who told me is like, you bury the good news in your emails. I was like,
interesting.
Pray tell, what do you mean? It was like, by the time I finish reading this email, I feel good about things, but you seem to always like the lead of the story was always like something is broken or something is awful. And then it'd be like, here's the information about what's going on. And by the way, everything's fixed and we're up to speed and everything's awesome again. And that's how I'd be like closing emails. She was like, oh, huh. So now I switch it around to where I'm like, everything's great, but here's what happened.
Yeah.
And that sort of mental switch to like prioritize the positive also helped quite a bit.
Prioritizing the positive is definitely it is a mental shift, right? I've historically been a pessimist myself, and my wife is an optimist, and she's helped me have more optimism. I think that she just hasn't used as many computers as I have.
Well, so
proximity to software definitely impacts that view.
So you ended up taking this time off with obviously sad server and sad operator. And then I remember you tweeting out of like your, normal human account that you were like, I had a dream, that Corey Quinn like told me to bring sad server back. And I was like, oh, I miss sad server. And then it was like a day later, you're like, I'm back, baby.
Corey is my spirit. Corey Quinn, for those of you who don't know, Corey's definitely got in my head, I guess. I don't even remember the context of the dream. I think we were at reInvent or something, and he had like bullied me into like doing a panel or something as sad server. I was like, oh right, this was fun. I remember when making jokes was fun. So I was like, I want to do this again.
That's great. It's good to remember the joy that you had in the past. Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, so obviously like the creativity around this is really insane. Do you have like a running list that you put somewhere that you're like, or you just like, it comes to you and you like kind of like, I don't know, schedule it within Twitter just so you don't lose it for a later time? I mean, how do you actually manage it? Or do you have some like legit serverless process like, others people do to run their tweets?
It's usually sort of like whenever inspiration strikes. And so that was actually part of the problem with like burning out a little bit on this, was I was trying to create things. And so I was getting negative in my head and then coming up with jokes as a result. But most of the time it's been stuff that like, I don't know, I just think funny things when I'm watching stuff flow through in Twitter. That the night when I had that dream, I also had a really
good holiday one for this time of year.
This is an old one. I couldn't believe how old that was. That's from 2014. That's when I was responsible for actual machines, like actual things that had actual blinking LEDs I had to care about.
Wow, that was just like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I've done a cloud migration in the last 2 years, so it's still a thing.
Oh my gosh,
still a thing people do.
Yeah,
I'll like wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and I'll have like stupid ideas, and I'll look at my phone. I'll just like they're all like typoed to shit. And then in the morning, I see if they're funny or not. But
and then fix the typo, and then publish the draft. There you go.
Yeah. I think something from Sat Operator that I posted. The one that, where was it? Oh yeah, this was the one that I came back with on Sat Operator. That was something in a dream that was inspired by some real life stuff. Which is somewhere along the line we went from being called network operator sysadmins, DBAs to just DevOps.
Yeah, I'm still sysadmin. I'm gonna die on this hill.
Good for you. That's important. I felt like that popped into my head because I found with job postings and other stuff that I've seen, everybody's looking for DevOps. And I remember like when I came into the industry, I remember this very rich spread of what people were doing in the infrastructure space. like if you've ever worked with like a really good DBA, like they're worth the money. Absolutely. It's a distinct skill set. You can't take someone like me and say, well, here's some Terraform, go run this giant ass MySQL cluster. Like, good luck. It just doesn't work. You can't just give people infrastructure as code and expect them to have the knowledge to succeed in these very specialized verticals of the infrastructure space.
Well, yeah, it's like when we moved to the cloud, like I had a CCNA because I worked for an ISP that was like the OG SaaS company, right? Was the ISP that also sold server space because we had a lot of bandwidth, right? And so I had my CCNA. I could, subnet in my head. I can still do some of that, like IPv4 related. And then like we went to cloud and everything was just on like a public network. So we were like, who needs networks anymore, right? And then it turned out like you actually still kind of need networks, I found this was
it that thing? Oh, yeah.
Just DevOps, and it's just like, YOLO to production.
I may have had a colleague ask, they just needed education, but ask about the purpose of infrastructure engineers now that we are in the cloud and that we have Terraform. And I'm just like,
well, there's all these different services in AWS, and they all have to work together.
I don't know how to begin. Like, I don't even understand how to start on a premise to answer this question. Like, but we're in the cloud and we have Terraform, and I'm just, it's like trying to explain how internet routing works to like my parents. Like, they understand that computers connect with cables at some point.
Yes.
But if you're like, well, so there's multiple networks. So there's like the Comcast network, and that bridges into these other networks, and there's peering groups, and they're like, I mean,
like,
okay.
Lost you there.
What do you want for dinner?
Would you like some more turkey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was just so struck by like how it felt like in a very short span of time. And I remember this thing from Netflix at one point, which is not apropos of their current foot shooting that they've been doing. But this no ops, like some VP ran his mouth about no ops. And everybody in the infrastructure space was like, I don't think you understand what the hell happens underneath here. And I kind of had that feeling again, like there's a lot of very important domain expertise and understanding in the infrastructure space that is now DevOps across the board.
Yep.
And
well, we have a comment that calling a person a DevOps is like me calling a person Six Sigma. And like, I believe this in my soul that, DevOps isn't a job title. It's, it's a thing that your organization does. And, this whole movement and all that. But, once it started showing up in like HR systems and recruiting boards, then it was no longer a soapbox to stand on, that it's not a job title.
I've been taking to referring to using infrastructure engineer.
That's a good one.
In job titles and things like that. Because DevOps, I'm with you on that. Like, as part of the original like cultural revolution of DevOps that happened. Like, this is a thing that we do. It's not who we are.
But an important question is where to buy the best DevOps. Obviously on Amazon. Clearly.
I don't know if Amazon's where you can get the best DevOps. They've got AWS got great deals on DevOps, but I'm not sure.
It's true. Like, Walmart is the largest retailer, right? With actual stores, but you don't necessarily go buy, fine leather goods there or anything. So
you don't.
Well,
I bought my leather jacket somewhere else. I don't know.
Fair enough.
I can't pull off leather anymore. Can't do a leather jacket. It's not the 90s.
See, I just always wear black, so you know, like it was fine. Like a black leather jacket, real easy. I can pull that off.
While you're riding your motorcycle next to the F-14 taking off.
I don't ride motorcycles anymore.
Right.
But
great
my wife
reason
does,
to have it.
So excellent.
And the industry is super funny to me. I don't know how more people don't make jokes about. Like, Croy is fantastic. I will give him the cloud economist stand-up comedian job title. I think he's earned that very, very well. but that there's all of these very professional people walking around, especially at like conferences or, talking on the internet about all of these things with a very serious tone of voice. Like containers is probably the good one for me.
It kind of reminds.
It's too serious.
I can't really remember who I was talking to about this. That was. Oh, you know what? It was the whole thing on. I think Mitchell Hashimoto from HashiCorp put this on Twitter, talking about how there was this panel at a conference, and you had like a Docker executive who kept on like trying to say like Dockerize, like they were trying to like introduce this word into the lexicon of people, and it was like no, it's not containerizing, it's Dockerizing, like Simonizing your upholstery, right?
I just have the blinking guy meme animated GIF going.
Yeah.
Just what? Yeah. What is going on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a good point though. Why do you think, I mean, I kind of have my own thoughts, but like, I guess, why do you think that there are not more people that are willing to just make fun of this industry, like in general, and not in like a mean way? I think there are ways to
have you been on
it.
Twitter?
I think it really comes down to Pete. There's so much we have invested in it. Like for people who, for I guess all of us, this is our livelihood. It's a little bit harder to look in the mirror and to be like, this is ridiculous, this thing I'm doing, but let's talk about it and let's make fun of it. A lot of people won't do that. Understandably so. It's not the most fun. It kind of makes me feel silly sometimes when I'm holding these opinions and then talking in a very serious tone of voice about the important work that we're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's also hard, like on Twitter where everything's public, and then like your boss and your CEO are following you. And then that becomes awkward when you start making snarky comments about product.
Dude. I've
never done that.
Anonymity was really useful for me for a while, because I would have colleagues like ping me about stuff that Sad Server would say and be like, can you believe this? Like this just happened. Like, no,
that's a strange coincidence. Huh.
Was it? So I remember that you had done a Puppet Conf like thing. Was that like the first public time that like your physical manifestation of yourself was connected to Sad Server?
Yeah, but my the physical manifestation of myself, yes. My badge still, like I knew a lot of people that worked at Puppet at the time. They're all just amazing people. And they let me register. Like I submitted the talk as Sad Server. I got a badge as Sad Server. And so I didn't actually have any identifying information about me at the conference, but some people actually recognize me from previous talks and things like that.
I mean, I know a lot of people didn't have any clue until you actually posted from your personal account that you were like, this is over. And then like, and I know a bunch of people were like, oh wow, like I had no idea, because obviously
that Puppet Conf talk I also never acknowledged from my own, like it never went up on my blog. I never acknowledged like, oh hey, I did a talk. It was strictly within the character. So yeah, the retirement blog post that I posted was more overt than I think anything that I had done previously. It's a lot of fun to be in a character. I don't know about YouTube, but I was a drama kid when I was younger. And being like in somebody else's shoes for a long time, or this persona, is just so much fun. Like it's hard. I don't know. It's a good little escape. That's one of the reasons I ended up creating Sad Operator as well. Like Sad Server was always this perspective of like the machine that I'm screwing up,
right?
Their thoughts on the situation. But Sad Operator was more my perspective in the organization, or as an individual working in the infrastructure space. So there's a little bit more organizational or company type things that tended to manifest there.
Right. Yeah. Because the server wasn't in the meetings.
The server was not in the meetings. No.
Yeah. I took a drama class in high school, but I wasn't a drama kid, but I was a tabletop role playing kid. So I've
helps.
Been in a lot of characters. And I never, like, I didn't stop playing D&D when I graduated high school. Like I played D&D like a year ago, Not so much lately because pandemic, but here we are.
It's a little harder to get people together.
It is.
Sorry. Sometimes I just look back at things.
I know. I'm like,
it makes me laugh.
I'm scrolling through actually some of the sad opera. I guess it's so it's so interesting how popular these get, because I always try to tell people this. They're always like, "Oh, I don't like where I'm at, and I want to go to a different company." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what are you going to do with the new company?" Well, I'm going to do DevOps. I'm going to do like Kubernetes, and I'm going to do monitoring. I'm going to do this.
Bad news, buddy.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Like, this is going to be the same as here. Like, for the most part, 100%, maybe like 95% of your life will be the same when you go from here to here. Yeah. Where like that last 5% is like the dollar amount in your paycheck and like the humans that you have to work with. But even there, like
sometimes the humans are still the same people.
The humans are the same people. Right? Yeah, the same personas still survive along the way.
Yes, also true. Yeah, you do have some characters that will make a reappearance. You've got the Scrum Master, and you've got the
cameos,
the HR team, and
yeah. But some of that stuff, like, you have so much more agency in how that relationship works at when you make an organizational change. You have so much more ability to change sort of who you present to that company, unless you're working with the same people again, and then they're like, what's this shtick you're trying to pull off, dude? Like, we remember you. But I think we're very fortunate in the tech industry, because when you jump companies, you can change who you are in that new company. I mean, your fundamental skill set's going to be the same. You're like, I always spoke first in meetings, and I really want to stop that. I mean, you can do that at any point, obviously, but I find it's a lot easier to sort of reassess who you want to be when you make that job change. So yeah, I mean, the tech's going to be the same. I agree with you there, Pete, but there's such a good opportunity to be someone different, or to be the better version that you wanted to be when you move into a new company, because it's like starting over at a new school. Like, no one knows you here. You could be the cool kid here. You don't know.
Oh man, I wish I was the cool kid somewhere.
It's true. Yeah. I remember when I was basically like the angry person. I was like, am I taking crazy pills? Is it just me? Like, what's going on here? Because why, and it was just like, probably like approaching one of my, burnout phases. And I just remember, like, I was just the person who was angry all the time. In every meeting, like, I was just angry. And then I quit, and like it took like 3 times for me to quit before it like finally really stuck, where it was like
3 times at the same company, or
same company. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to go. And they're like, well, like, why don't you take a week vacation, come back, like, cause they, again, like I was the hothead, like I was the angry one. So it's like, and then by the 3rd one, they were like, oh, okay, like we get it. Like, this is not working. But honestly, like I took time off. I had the luxury of taking a few months off, not working, and to figure out like what was really interesting. And it was really amazing. Like, then starting the the thing that I like specifically went and looked for, and just how completely different like my personality was just with that little bit of time off. But yeah, I never really thought about it as just like really truly kind of just like reinventing who you are, right? Because like you'll carry this bag. Like, everyone knew me as the angry person, because like it was very easy to be angry. Well,
there's Angry Pete over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent some emails. I sent some
old Angry Pete. What are we gonna do?
Bourbon fueled emails late at night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was just like, don't, like, pro tip for the kids out there. Don't send emails after midnight.
Oh, 2 features that have like changed. I've been that person quite a bit as well. Like, Slack scheduled messages. I schedule a lot of messages to where I'm like, schedule for tomorrow.
Do you stop them though before they go?
Sometimes I go back and edit.
Yeah, good for you.
Other times, like, someone needs to be the bad guy. It's just being the bad guy at like 1:30 in the morning is handled or received a little differently than being the bad guy at like 9:30 a.m. But also Gmail allows you to schedule messages now, and so I do a lot of that as well. So I'm like, I need to get my thoughts out here. I'm either going to make this a draft, or I'm going to schedule it later, and then I'll look back at it again in the morning.
Yeah. I just avoid that problem by not using email at all.
The scheduled Slack though, that's because I'm a big scheduled email person too, but scheduled Slack is also like super helpful.
We use this product which I really enjoy called Hey Taco. I was introduced to it a couple of companies ago, and it's basically like this sort of goofy, way to show gratitude to one another. Like you give people taco emojis, and the taco bot recognizes it, and you get 5 tacos to give a day, and things like that. And those little sorts of things have also helped defray some of the, I'd say the anger or like that frustration that you have between people, because you are encouraged, and it's a little fun to actually say like, no, hey, that was awesome. Thank you so much for the help. Or especially if you're in an infrastructure position and you're like dealing with an incident, and someone like throws a bunch of tacos your way and is like, wow, thank you for jumping in and helping with that incident. That was really helpful. It takes that like, oh, I'm so angry about this incident, to like, oh yeah, well that sucked, but cool. I'm glad we're done. Let's go on to the next thing. And there's these little like putting that positive spin on things helps quite a bit, especially in a remote organization. And I mean, y'all are remote and I'm remote now as well. Like you don't have that ability to have a drink with somebody or to like go have coffee and say like, hey, so that thing, right? That was rough. Like, let's not do that again. So you've got to find some of these like little social lubricants to make everybody cool with what's happening, or else you'll just go angry Pete mode, sending emails late at night.
Well, I was going to say, there's a friend of Alma also working on one of these tools as well.
Cray's not fun.
Yeah, this is we are fans of, but it's that's definitely something I've noticed from working from home is really that world of not just having those quick moments of like, hey, I need to like let's go grab a coffee, or like with another human, and then just having like a 5-minute burst of like, get this out of my system, right? Like I'm upset for these following reasons. Then you get a coffee and come back, and then you come back and you're fine, and you're like, yeah, cool. But like,
pull out your list of grievances.
Yeah, I feel like now that I'm working at home all the time, it's like, I guess I just yell at the squirrels mostly for digging out my yard. That's as far as I can get.
Yeah. Well, and we're all in Zoom meetings all day long, and Slack has like, you integrate the G calendar into your Slack, so there's like a little meeting icon next to your name, so nobody wants to bother you, and you don't get to walk over to somebody's desk and see if they're actually in a meeting or if they are ready to go to coffee. So like those bring for challenges. Where are you at these days? What are you working on in terms of working remote and doing fun things?
I'd prefer not to affiliate my company with any of the silly things that I'm doing.
That's fine.
A lot of the stuff that I'm working on now is data infrastructure and ML infrastructure.
Okay, cool. So are you writing like ML processing, or are you doing like the?
I'm not doing any of this shit. I am.
Excellent.
Moving to the company that I'm at currently, and this is not a secret, it's just not something I wish to talk about right now.
No, that's fine.
But moving to this company,
about the kind of work you're doing.
I went from like back-end API services as a software developer to like infrastructure engineering, and then infrastructure engineering became software again. So I guess I was a software engineer again a little there. And then in this context, data infrastructure is something. For the longest time, it was like off in the corner for me of infrastructure engineering. These were the days when like people were like, we did a Hadoop and now we can process all the blurbs and the gerbs. And I was like, cool. Okay. You did a Hadoop. I don't know what that means, but sure. And now data has become this sort of like so important to so many organizations, regardless of whether they, data is the source of their business, they still have to have very significant data platforms. And it is all of the things that I actually really enjoyed about backend API services and like distributed computing. That was a lot of fun, like whether from an infrastructure standpoint or from a software standpoint, it was always very challenging and really enjoyable. All of the fun, at least to me, challenges are in data infrastructure and data processing and scaling up ML training or deployment of models. Most of the services side of things, like we kind of know the playbook, right? Like people have been doing microservices now, or building services before that, building services oriented architectures for like 20, 30 years at this point. It's a well-trodden path. But when you suddenly throw like ML models into it. You're like, I don't know what the hell we're gonna do. We've got this. I've seen some models that are gigabytes large, and so we've got this giant ass binary artifact that we say, shoot data at it, and it's like thumbs down. We're like, okay, you shoot more data. It's like thumbs up. And you've got to incorporate that into like real systems. But it's a very different sort of domain, and it's a lot. To me, it's a lot more exciting because there is no tried and true playbook on how to scale these things up, whether organizationally, infrastructurally, or from a software standpoint. So that's where I spend a lot of my time now. Because a lot of other things like shove it in a container, set up some CloudWatch metrics, auto scale it in Fargate, and then you're like, okay, well, I don't know. I'm gonna go do something else then, I guess.
Yeah. Problem solved.
Screw up some BGP rep or something.
Or DNS entries. Or why not both, really?
Or DNS entries.
Well, cool. So you tweet at SAD server, or as SAD server and as SAD operator, and is it Agent Darrow?
Mm-hmm. Agent Darrow, yeah.
It's like It's like Agent Zero, but not quite.
Like Agent Zero. Darrow is, at least at one point, it may still be the case, but it was Australian slang for like a vagrant or a bum, which when I was given the name definitely fit my personality quite well. Yeah, Agent Darrow. I've had Australian people ask me like, you know what that means, right? I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm cool with it.
Indeed. Any new insights from SAD server that we should be aware of? I know SAD server's making the comeback, so is there any new ones out there?
Nothing particularly comes to mind. What I actually find, what I'm enjoying the most right now, as sort of a point of ridicule, is everybody has gone through, almost everybody, I won't say everybody, almost everybody has gone through this trajectory of like, we want to empower developers, we put developers on this pedestal. We're like, we need to empower these developers to ship things as fast as possible in the cloud. So we're going to the cloud. So we all go to the cloud. And now a lot of organizations are like, wait a second, giving developers free reign on basically this thing that is going to charge us per second or per compute hour or like per some utilization maybe wasn't a good idea. And so there's this really funny pool of like, wait, we want to empower developers, but like with some limits. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
We want to empower them. No, not like that.
Yeah. Too much empowerment, a little too much empowerment. Because people will have these discussions. That's a really funny comment.
I think that says it all for what you're talking about there. That the developers are clearly more important. Otherwise, it would be ops dev.
I don't know. Like I posted something about it recently because it's just super funny. If you ask finance for a corporate card, they will not give you one.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me how I know. But if you ask for like, hey, I need admin access in an AWS account, like, okay, what do you need it for? Reasons? Great, here you go. And
to
like all of a sudden you just have this.
Yeah, the approval process to get a $200 thing approved, they'll rake you over the coals for it. But well, I can go spin up $100,000 worth of systems right now if I really want to. There's zero approval process whatsoever.
Quite easily.
Yeah. If
anything, your TAM might say, hey, do you know what you're doing? And you say, yeah, sure. And then they just remove whatever glass ceiling they put on your account, and then you're good. We had earlier this year, we had a developer purchase their ticket to reInvent through their AWS account, which went on our corporate AWS bill. And I didn't know about this. And their manager, like it was legit. Their manager knew about it. But to see this like random like few $1,000 charge show up on the bill, we're like, what the hell is this? Oh, some developer from their AWS account could just like click a button in AWS Marketplace and get a ticket to reInvent, or I don't actually know what flow they went through. And there was no like approval process. There was no procurement. There's no nothing that went associated with it. So like, as long as you can buy it through like an AWS marketplace or whatever the equivalent in Azure, whatever it is. But like, as long as you can purchase it through your cloud account, developers can do like anything. And now you've got partner integrations. So we're like, I'm going to go buy an Okta, or I'm going to go buy some other random tool through AWS marketplace. Click, done.
And then now you're getting charged from that vendor and AWS, but it all comes through AWS, and you don't see external vendor as the line item.
And if you were to ask finance people, I don't think they would say, "Great, that sounds wonderful for me."
Yeah.
But we have really empowered developers to go cloud native with this. So here we are. I'm just tickled pink by just I don't know. We have this tendency in the tech industry to look like about this far in front of our noses and not think about, second or third order consequences, and just the third order consequences of giving developers this access, and infrastructure, like people in engineering in general tend to have this sort of access, in terms of how it affects the finances for the company, is really, really funny, because it was predictable, like easily predictable. But empowerment was the word that ruled the day.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's truly agile.
You wanted self-service. I gave you self-service.
It's truly agile. There's no blockers. Are you blocked by anything? Nope. I got everything approved through the AWS console.
You wanted me to have more velocity. This has increased my velocity.
There you go. Indeed. I had a question and I forgot what it was already, because I blinked since then, and I have a memory like a goldfish. Pete, do you have anything else you want to ask?
This is great. I really appreciate it. I guess we're all excited to have some humor, I guess, back in our lives after this little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah.
So hopefully, hopefully we get the great resurgence of some lighthearted
no pressure.
humor.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's just the lighthearted humor of just
like, hey, we've all been feeling down in the dumps because of the everything. So we're counting on you, buddy.
Yeah, no pressure.
Make me chuckle. Bart, say the line. Like, yeah. DevOps.
Oh, DevOps. Oh, don't forget DevSecOps. Right, we got to include security in this.
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Because that's is that the next thing? Is the SAD security?
There's a couple of spinoffs. There's a couple of random people that created SAD X. Like, I didn't really set up a franchise model or anything here.
Oh yeah. I mean, did you get SAD DevOps?
No.
Uh-oh.
I like there's Honest Status page, which I've really enjoyed. There's like I am
toddler
Devlipper.
Oh yes.
Which is also there's also they're not very active anymore. It was PHP CEO or something.
Yeah, I saw everything was recommended when I went to the SAD server. It says who to follow, and sometimes it's CLI Magic and I am Developer, and then it was PHP CEO, and
there was also shit. I wish I could remember the name of this account. It was like bad user stories,
yes,
or something
I saw
like
that recently.
Like any sort of irreverent take on the tech industry, I'm 100% there for. Because on the backside of this, there's people like taking companies public, and like I'm not going to pick on HashiCorp. Like HashiCorp started out as like the Vagrant company, and now they're like many billions of dollars worth of company, and they totally have deserved it. Like they've done phenomenal work, but
and they make phenomenal products, and
they do excellent job. But you have this like, in this span of time, there's people making huge amounts of money to where I kind of feel like, well, yeah, I'm still going to make fun of you because it's like, it's funny. It's, don't take this too seriously. We're building out infrastructure to push bits.
We had this comment earlier to take the job and the work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good
words we can live by.
Words I try to live by. I try not to take myself too seriously.
Y'all should look out. There's a lot of it's no longer any star ops. Well, I guess I've seen ML ops, which is funny and annoying. I've seen AI ops, which is also funny and annoying. But I don't know why people love ops. They like
nobody loves ops. That's the problem.
Branding wise, we love it from a branding standpoint.
Yes, that's true.
Because all of these companies are trying to sell you something to put actual infrastructure people and automators out of a business, out of their jobs. Like, use this tool and you won't have to hire any ML engineers anymore. And you're like, I don't think that's quite right. But okay. But in the data platform and the ML platform space, there's a lot of it's kind of like watching the highlight reel or like the best of mix on YouTube from one of your just think of any 90s band that you might have remembered and then getting a best of mix. That's what I'm reliving in the data and ML space with some of the product marketing and some of how people are selling things. Oh, this was good. I'm glad I get to experience this type of hype train again. It's so much fun. I don't have anybody in particular.
Building your own database.
Yeah, I remember Hot Minute. Who's that company? I remember I loved Kyle Kingsbury's AFER before he dropped off of Twitter, but his deep dive analysis on all of these vendors who are like, I'm going to build a database. I'm going to build a distributed database and I'm going to try to sell it to you. And then Kyle would come along and be like, well, here are all of the reasons on why this is not good. And,
Yep.
You can actually tell the vendors who cared because they would be like, oh, cool. Like, can we pay you to help make this better? And then they would do that. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, even though your thing's not perfect, that's fine. But wow, you're actually willing to not just be like, this person doesn't know anything. It's like, no. You're like, pay them the money to make the thing better. I would so much love to continue chatting, but I, as someone
we got work to do, don't we?
Has things I have another call so I have to go from this box into a new box. That I
just
will
shake it off.
Also inside of for a little while.
For anybody that's not worked with Pete before, it's just a different hat.
Just
puts on a different boss.
Sometimes it's not even a different hat. He's just in a different room in his house.
Yeah, that's true. Or I'm on my porch because it's beautiful, and that's where I work from sometimes as well.
It's true. Can confirm. It's spooky now with the spider webs out there.
Well, mostly from my kids' decorations for the holiday time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for everybody who's watching this or has watched this. For all the people in the future, we appreciate you. Check them out. Agent Darrow, Sad Server, Sad Operator on the Tweetosphere. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.